Hey everybody, it is November already. It's really another case of time flying. We've had most of the year in pandemic mode. We've had rugby called off, we've had rugby back on. We're coming to the end of the year and we've really got a flood of rugby at the moment. You've got Super Rugby unlocked in South Africa. You've just had the finish of the Six Nations. You've got Autumn Nations Cup coming up. You've got the Tri Nations one game in. So for those of us that kind of been starving for rugby content, the Pro 14's back on, Super Rugby Aotearoa has come and gone, same with AU. Premierships had its final Champions Cup, so it's all been back. It's no doubt been a logistical nightmare for everybody involved, but what can we say as rugby fans? We are just happy to have the stuff back. I am going to talk quickly. I'll do some stats from the channel. I got a new jersey, some thanks to give, and we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming Player of the Decade award, and also a bit about David Pocock because he has retired. I'll start with the jersey. This came from Gerrit, who I met the other day face to face. He gave me this Cheetahs cap and this Cheetahs jersey, which I did manage to squeeze into. It's a size smaller than I normally wear, but I basically said, because I've been doing videos about Super Rugby Unlocked, that I couldn't find a Cheetahs jersey anywhere, so he was kind enough to offer me this one, and I most thankfully accepted. So thank you, mate, for this. It was good to meet you and to grab this jersey. Like I said, I can squeeze into it. So yeah, I'll be putting this up either in the background or on myself for the remainder of those Super Rugby Unlocked vids. And to be fair, the Cheetahs have actually looked the business in that competition, which is really pleasing to see, because I do not follow enough Pro 14 to have seen them in much action. Like, I've seen the odd game here and there, but yeah, it's just been good for me to see some of the players that I haven't been seeing for quite some time, because the Cheetahs guys just don't seem to get selected by the Springboks, and I don't watch enough of the Pro 14. So yeah, but generally it's interesting that with all the talk of maybe the Cheetahs getting cut from the Pro 14 and stuff, the pushback from Cheetahs fans, but also just Pro 14 fans generally, who've kind of grown to at least have a soft spot for the Cheetahs, seems to have been pretty strong. Like, we're talking Irish and Welsh and Scottish fans and whatnot, talking about how they think the Cheetahs are maybe being hard done by. We'll have to wait and see how everything pans out. But yeah, there seems to be a lot of support for the Cheetahs, which is always good to see. So yeah, thanks, mate, again for the jersey. It is much appreciated. Other thanks, I will say a quick thank you to the Patreon people who support the channel every month. I'll roll their names up here. If you're not sure what I do on Patreon, it's basically just extra videos, Super Brew, which is where we talk about the predictions like Mitre 10 Cup and Super Rugby Unlocked and Six Nations and whatnot. Like, who did I pick? Why did I think I pick would be a good one? Was it right? Was it wrong? Recently been pretty bad. Six Nations picks I did okay. Do jersey reviews. I found an old jersey from my childhood recently. I had a quick look through that one. When I went to Eden Park, I took some footage, just stuff like that. So yeah, if you guys are interested, I'll check a link to Patreon in the description. But as always, man, it's COVID time, so everyone is tightening the belt. I'm just happy to have you guys here, subscribing, watching the videos, commenting, banter, all that kind of stuff. It all makes this worthwhile, man. Like, yeah, it's just always cool to see the comments on the vids, see your guys' opinions, and yeah, like I said, it makes things pretty happy days. In terms of the month for the channel, the number one vid was that Australia and All Blacks match number one review. It's interesting that whenever the All Blacks don't win, the video numbers skyrocket. It's always when there's an upset, like World Cup when Japan beat Ireland. That content was hugely popular, and yeah, All Blacks losing to England last year, that was hugely popular. Just anytime the All Blacks lose, that content seems to go through the roof. By country for October, we had South Africa number one, UK number two, Australia number three, New Zealand down at number four, and then the US, interestingly, at number five. Mostly dudes between 25 and 34, but females are up to 7%, which I think is, again, a record high. And people subscribed is 40%. So if you're not subscribed, do that, man. Doesn't cost anything. But yeah, Thank you, as always, guys, for the support. Love doing it. Player of the Decade. Now, I don't know if you guys have followed this. The voting's closed for this one, but they're doing a vote. Well, they did a vote for who will be announced as the World Rugby Player of the Decade. And they basically put up a list of options you could vote for based on the players who had won a World Player of the Year between 2010 and 2019. So that's McCaw for 2010, Dusatois for 2011, Carter for 2012, Reed for 2013, Retallick for 2014, Carter again for 2015, Bodie for 2016-17, Sexton for 2018, and Peter Steff for 2019. It's a bit of a weird one, the Player of the Decade. Like, I think when we got into 2020, people were asking me, because there were a lot of people bringing out teams of the decade. They're a hard one to do because do you look at it as like the best player at any one point in that decade, or do you look at the best player over that decade? Because if you're just looking 2010 to 2019, that's like kind of an arbitrary set of dates, right? Like if you have made your debut in 2015 and have just played through till 2019, then you've only had half of that decade to play. Whereas someone who just happened to make their debut in 2010 and retired, let's say they had a 10-year career, short career, in 2019 or 2020, like that person's had that full decade to compete. So it's a bit of a weird one. If you look at it as which player had the best year, like was Dan Carter in 2015 when he won that World Cup better than, Sexton in 2019 when Ireland went on that all-conquering run? That's probably the way you have to look at it, but it's hard as a person to narrow down a person's career to that particular year because it all just kind of blurs into one, right? You're just mostly thinking who was the better player. So I know last month they had looked at numbers, and the leading three were Carter with 19%, McCaw with 20%, and Sexton with 22%. Probably a bit of a case of if you're Irish, you vote for Sexton, whereas there's so many bloody Kiwis on there. The Kiwi votes are probably a bit split, but then again, I don't know. We'll see what happens. That award is going to be out in December. I think December 7th they will be announcing that one. Again, I'm not that kind of fussed about it because, like I said, it's such a hard one to judge over the course of 10 years. I think during the 10 years, they put up the stats. Carter played 46 games in the 2010s internationally. Richie played 68. Sexton played like 92 because he was active internationally for a longer period, whereas like Peter Steff is at the younger end and he only played 55. So as you see what I mean, how about it's hard to judge over the course of the decade because it's just depending on when you started your career. I don't know. Anyway, it'll probably be a number 10 that gets it because that's just always the way those awards go. When was the last time a prop got World Player of the Year? Bloody never. What I did like a little bit more is like Try of the Decade because those ones you can kind of one-to-one compare. If you haven't seen Try of the Decade, I'll see if I can remember to put the link to World Rugby's like video in there. There's some pretty bloody good tries. And for the men's one, they go like year by year. And a lot of them are kind of good team tries. Pass, offload, and like one of them, Barrett finishes. He's just kind of the last man there. It's not so much individual brilliance. There's an Irish one. Is it Heaslip that gets it? It's like a huge team try. And there's like a Habana chip and chase, which is more like individual brilliance. There's Savia 2015 busting off like 3 French tackles, mostly individual brilliance. But they did show it that it was like Ben Smith winning a contestable high ball that set up that position to get the try. So you can kind of take that into account as well. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Weirdly, for the women's tries, like the men's ones, they've got 1 try from each year from 2010 through 2019. But for like the women's ones, they've got 1 from 2014, no, 2 from 2014, 2 from 2017, 2 from 2016, like 1 from 2017. It's like 5 tries seemingly randomly chosen from years. I'm not sure if because not enough women's games get televised. I don't know, but it was just a bit weird. But yeah, there's some good women's tries as well. There's one with a loose head prop who scores one down the left wing for Wales. Like that's a good try. It's worth checking out as well. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on World Player of the Decade. How would you pick it? Do you pick who was the best player who played in that decade? What if they only played 1 year in that decade? Or do you go with, like, over the course of the decade, who managed to kind of get in the most minutes? Like, I think Kieran Reid had 111 games. So by sheer number, he should be your guy. But anyway, pretty high win rate as well. Last one is David Pocock. I mean, I don't usually do videos about when a guy retires, but he was a pretty bloody good player, wasn't he? Yeah, man. Zimbabwean born, played 83 tests for the Wallabies. He's captained the Wallabies, made it to a Rugby World Cup final, scored a try in the Rugby World Cup final, albeit a losing Rugby World Cup final. Scored 9 tries in his career. Couldn't find out how many turnovers he got, but it would be a ton. The guy was an absolute master of getting over the ball and either winning penalties or just getting a clean pilfer. Probably the best in the business while he was active, man. 47 wins, 35 losses, and 1 draw at test level. So can you imagine if he played for a better team than that Wallabies team as well? And like I said, he still made a Rugby World Cup final. In that Rugby World Cup final, like I said, he scored a try. He made 13 out of 13 tackles, which was the highest for that game for both sides. So kind of gives you an indication of what kind of individual contribution he made. I think for Beauden Barrett's try at the end, like, he's like the last guy running back in defense. Just, he's got a ticker about him, even if he couldn't do anything about it. He didn't put his head down. Also played for the Force and the Brumbies and also the Wild Knights over in Japan. So 100 plus games of Super Rugby. But remember, he played 83 tests. In theory, he should have a lot more Super Rugby caps, but the guy was injured, man, so much. He had 2 full knee reconstructions and like a torn calf, neck injuries. The guy was like an injury magnet. Could have had an even better career if not for all the injuries he suffered. So yeah, you got to kind of, again, credit the guy for being able to go through like 12 months of rehab, come back, play, I think it was like 2 games of Super Rugby, and then get another knee blown and like another 9 months of like rehab. Like, yeah, man. Terrible luck for that guy. He is retiring to focus on conservation, and he seems like a pretty smart dude. Like, the Brumbies have got a YouTube channel, which is really not popular. They've got like 3,000 subscribers, and most of their videos get like 100 views. I don't know why their fan base doesn't engage with their YouTube channel, but it's unfortunate because they used to especially put out heaps of content like Brumbies TV show where they would like interview the players and like ask them funny questions or like, you know, behind the scenes stuff, just like extra footage that you would think fans would be keen on seeing. But like, you could always tell David Pocock was a pretty smart guy, because when they would ask him like questions that's supposed to be like, you know, the one quick easy answer, like who inspires you apart from rugby players, I think most of the guys were like, oh, my dad or my partner or my uncle, something like that. And David Pocock was like some scientist who invented like a water extraction device for like poor rural farmers to use, and it was like, bro, he's just always like thinking kind of seemingly next level stuff. But yeah, wish him well in all that conservation work he does. Remember, he won 2 John Eales medals, which is like Australian Player of the Year basically. He was nominated for World Player of the Year 3 times. He lost to McCaw in 2010, to Dusautoy in 2011, and to Carter in 2015. But yeah, classy dude. Shame to see him go, but the dude's had his fair share of injuries, so he deserves a break from the game. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts. As I said, thank you again for the Jersey Gerrit, and thanks to the Patreon people, to you, the viewers, subscribers, commenters, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts about David Pocock. Best player Aussie seen for quite some time. Player of the decade. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Cheers. Bye.